All right. Oh my god, I'm so red. Hi everybody, welcome back to the channel. I hope you all are doing well. As you can see, I'm still not back at home, back in my normal filming setup, so we're still at my mom's house. I've been so reluctant to film this video, and I don't know if it's because it's like at the center of my life and it's an awful subject and it's not like a good topic to talk about. It just brings me pain and brings other art workers pain, I guess, when I talk about it. I just put it as my calendar, 1 year without Broadway, 1 year without Broadway, and I just felt like we'd never get there, and yet here we are. So this Friday, March 12th, is gonna mark 1 year since Broadway's been shut down, since the first shutdown order was given to Broadway shows on March 12th, 2020, which feels like a lifetime ago. And yeah, it's been 1 entire year since Broadway has shut down. And if you have watched my other videos, or you know me at all, you know that I work on Broadway. Broadway is kind of what makes me me. When I was 14, I saw Hairspray on Broadway and I loved it and thought I have to work on Broadway any way I can, and I ended up doing that. But then Broadway shut down in March 2020. And I mean, I never thought something like this would happen. I don't think anybody did, but we're here and it's happening. So I thought that today I would talk about what it was like working on Broadway the few weeks before it shut down, what it's been like this past year as an arts worker, as someone whose social life tends to revolve around Broadway or musical theater sing-alongs on Sunday nights, and kind of when I think that things will return to at least some form of normal, given what we have been through this past year. So let's talk about that. My goodness, I'm already like breathing hard. Oh, I should also say before we begin that if you look at my social media or look at a couple of my other videos, like my apartment tour video, you can kind of derive what show I worked on when we shut down and where I work. But I want to say that this video does not reflect the views of that show, of that producing team, or the theater that show is in. This is my views. This is what happened from my point of view when Broadway shut down, how I've been feeling, thoughts and opinions are my own, that kind of thing. So let's get started. So what's funny now, I guess you could say funny in a sort of sarcastic, horrible way. What's funny to me now is that I wasn't worried about COVID at all in the weeks leading up to Broadway closing. The show I was working on in 2019 closed December 8th. After that, in January of 2020, I went on a cruise with my family. That was great. We'd heard about the virus a little coming from China. It wasn't a big thing. My family, at least, I don't think, wasn't worried about it. I wasn't. When I came back to New York, I wasn't worried about it at all. And then I actually subbed working on another show that also started previews in March, like the show I was working on did. And I wasn't still worried about it at all. I don't think a lot of people that I knew that worked on Broadway were worried about it at all. I would listen to the news and they would talk about, you know, that Diamond Princess cruise ship and things locking down in China and theme parks closing in Asia. But from what I remember, nobody in my circle or that I spoke to seemed to care or be worried about it. I remember our mayor in New York not really worried about it, telling people to go out to eat in Chinatown due to the racism, the awful racism that was happening in February and March of 2020 and is still happening today. But truly, I wasn't worried about COVID affecting Broadway or affecting New York. I remember being a little scared just because people are very close together on the subway. I thought the subway was much dirtier than our theaters because our theaters are wonderful on Broadway. But I wasn't worried about COVID affecting Broadway, to my chagrin. So then we get to March 2020, in which my show that I was working on premiered. We were sold out every single night, and I was not worried about COVID again. And I remember a couple of people that came to see the show asking me when it got a little bit more into March and things were starting to happen on the West Coast and things like that. I remember people asking me, oh, do you think like COVID is going to have an effect on Broadway? And I remember saying no, like we're going to be fine. My biggest concern at that time was what dress I was going to wear to opening night. I was looking forward to the Tony Awards, looking forward to the show I was working on running a long, healthy run. It was such a great show. I got to sit for it just a couple days before we closed down, and it's so good. I hope that you'll see it when Broadway comes back. But I truly was not worried about it until I think it was the day before Broadway closed when an usher was confirmed to test positive for the coronavirus. And I remember getting that email at my theater and just being like, oh, like, this has hit Broadway. This is kind of the nail in the coffin. I think something is gonna happen. But honestly, maybe to naivete or just being so tunnel focused on my show and on Broadway and opening and things like that, I thought maybe if we got shut down, we get shut down for a few days or like a week or something. And then of course next day, March 12th, is the day that the issue came through from Governor Cuomo of New York that Broadway would be shut down. And it wasn't specifically Broadway, it was any place that has 500 or more people gathering in it, which is Broadway theaters have 500 or more people. That's what makes it a Broadway theater. So that affected us. And I wasn't actually at my theater that day. The way my schedule worked that week was that I was off on March 12th. And I remember being on my phone, getting text messages hearing that the Broadway League was going to meet, that there was going to come down something from the governor that we'd be closed for a couple weeks. But it didn't really all truly hit me until we got the order that Broadway was going to be shut down. I think it was until April 12th, so like a full month. But still, I just thought it was going to be a month. The subways were still pretty crowded the days leading up to the Broadway shutdown. I just figured this is New York, you know, and Broadway and theater in general is so much the show must go on, that type of thing. So I was just convinced that it would only be a month. And in my job in particular, we actually worked at the theater a couple days after the shutdown came through. So we worked March 13th and March 14th. And March 14th was the last day in my theater and has been the last day in my theater until now and until whoever knows. But the day that we were finished, March 14th, I was talking to one of my coworkers about what we should leave in the fridge in our office. And I specifically remember him saying, well, if we're closed through the summer. And I remember thinking that was ridiculous. We won't be closed through the summer. We have to have the Tony Awards. We have to open our show. We have to go through all these things. Like, how are we going to be closed through the summer? This is Broadway. We have so much to do, so much to look forward to. I was so laser focused on what we were doing that I didn't think it would affect us, and then there we were. It's funny, I don't think that I realized how big of a deal it was because, at least for me living in New York, things like SARS, swine flu, other epidemics didn't really affect my life in any significant way, and so I just thought this would be like that and it wouldn't affect the world as much as it has, which obviously that was the wrong take. But I also specifically remember closing down and walking outside my theater on March 14th, walking with my coworker, and then us diverging and me walking down the street, and I just started tearing up, and I think I felt somewhere inside me that I wasn't going to be back at my theater for a long time, which I'm not gonna cry. I mean, and here we are. I don't even really know what to say for a year with Broadway closed. There's only been a few other times that Broadway has shut down. I remember one of them, which was the stagehand strike, I want to say in the late 2000s. But Broadway was closed for a couple of weeks, and we would go and we would stand outside the theaters and make sure we were marked present, and then we would leave. But I remember being a real like camaraderie thing, and I had a lot of fun hanging outside those theaters with my coworkers or with actors from our shows. But obviously this feels different because we can't hug each other, we can't interact with our coworkers, we can't interact with other people that work in other theaters that we may know. And so much of my social life revolves around people I've met working on Broadway, obviously musical theater sing-alongs, things like that, but so much of my social life is openings, going to see shows, having drinks in Midtown. So much of my world revolved around those 41 theaters, and for that not to be the case is just weird. I mean, and obviously, of course, it's my job. I haven't worked in that sense in a year. I did that pole working thing, which I made a whole vlog on, but that was really the only time that I have worked in the past year. And it's also funny because I've always said that I never wanted to retire. I like having a place to go. I like having a purpose. I don't like sitting around. I'm not good at it. I'm very procrastinating, so I like to do whatever I want to do, or just like lay on my bed and say I'll do something but not do it, which is why I don't think I could probably ever work from home. Anyways, so to not be employed for a year is really, really rare, and something I never ever thought would happen. I never thought I'd retire. I never thought that I would not work. And a couple months after Broadway shut down and through this year, so many people have said, well, you know, you should go do something else. There's no guarantee that Broadway's going to come back or your show's going to come back. And the thing is, I have quit Broadway twice, and the industry that I have worked in has been hospitality, which has also been hit hard. My major in college was hospitality and tourism management. So I have left Broadway twice because it took everything out of me, and I thought I could never truly make it on Broadway. So in 2009, I did that video where I told you about the Disney College program, which is what I did when my show closed in 2009. I didn't like it, and I just wanted to work on Broadway. So I came back and I finished college, and I was ushering at a Broadway show. And then once I graduated college, things still weren't happening for a Broadway career. So I decided to work in hospitality, and I went and I worked at the biggest hotel in New York for almost a year, and I still didn't like it. Like, it was a fine job and everything, but I could not imagine myself not working on Broadway. That is what I wanted to do. That is like the inside of me here. I had to be part of Broadway anywhere I could. It's why I moved to New York. So I made a decision to quit that job and to do 2 internships at the same time. I've talked about this in my How to Work on Broadway video. I only got the job that I have now about 3 years ago. In February 2018, I joined my theater. I joined for a show, and I finally had a job where I was able to comfortably live in New York, pay my bills, travel, treat my family when I would go visit them, take them on that trip to Disney Asia that I keep talking about. I both got to work on Broadway and got to make enough money to support myself and to do the things I wanted to do, which is almost unheard of working in theater or working in entertainment. I finally had that job and had that freedom, and then of course it was all taken away in March 2020. And so for me this past year, I am so incredibly lucky that I've always had an emergency fund of a decent amount of money, so that if a show was closed for a long time, I would be all right. That plus unemployment is what I've been living on for the past year. And I cannot imagine the situation for ushers, for porters, for bartenders, for the people that work on Broadway that you do see in the theaters, but that may not make the salary of, say, a general manager or a stagehand or a company manager or something like that. Like, if this had happened 10 years ago when I was ushering on Mary Poppins on Broadway and making like $400 a week, I don't know if I would come back. I don't know if I would want to come back. I think I would fully, honestly, try to pivot to another industry. Now, I'm so incredibly lucky that the producers of my show have said that we are coming back. I don't know exactly when, of course, but I think that my show is going to be one of the ones to return. But for so many other people that work on Broadway, it's not guaranteed. I mean, who thought that Frozen was going to post a closing notice a month into the Broadway shutdown? The other show to post, Mean Girls, those shows, Frozen and Mean Girls, they're backed by like multi-billion-dollar companies. I feel like no show is safe, and that is so incredibly scary. And so some people I know have been pivoting and doing other things, but I don't know if I just can't bring myself to do it, or that I know the show will come back eventually. But I've just been kind of sitting and waiting for the show to come back, and I feel like I've lost a year of my life, to be completely honest with you. I talked about mental health a lot in the past video where I told you why I'm in Florida. But now that's going to be the time that I cry. But speaking just from my point of view, the toll that this year has had on my mental health, and I'm sure the mental health of my friends and other people in arts, has been just insane. I mean, my face matches my lipstick now. I don't want to make this a woe is me thing, because I know that I'm so lucky to have the savings that I do and to have my mom's house here, to have my family. But, you know, nobody goes into theater for the money, and that is so hard to try to make a life for yourself in New York working on Broadway. I know, because so many of the friends that I've had have dropped off throughout the years. They've decided to go do other things, and that's totally fine, but I worked so hard to have the life that I did. You know, I didn't date. I didn't go to family events. I had such tunnel vision in getting the job that I tried to get, to making a life somewhere for me on Broadway, and I did that, and I actually did that before I was 30, which is amazing, at least I think so. To just have all that go up in smoke, for that industry to not exist right now, when I spent my life since I was 14 working towards it, is, it can do a number on you. Anyways, I don't want this to be a crying video, so let's talk about when Broadway's gonna come back. And I mean, that's another thing, we don't know when Broadway's gonna come back, and I hope that I don't sound too nasally after I've cried. Anyways, I think what's important to understand about Broadway coming back, and that most people might not think about, is that it's not just gonna be a switch flipped on and that Broadway's just gonna come back and all the theaters are gonna be full again. It may have happened maybe if this had only been 2 weeks, but it's not gonna happen. And that's a horrible thing to realize, but that's not gonna happen. A lot of people don't realize that it's gonna take millions per show for each Broadway show to come back. You have to recast if some people have moved on or some people have passed away. You're gonna have to rehearse. You are going to have to retrain your people. You're going to have to pay for new COVID cleaning safety protocols. That's going to cost so much money. You have to market the shows. You have to rebuild your advance from scratch. That's also something that people don't realize, is that there is really no money in the bank, because you can't book groups and things like that when you don't know when your show's going to come back, and when groups don't know either, so they're not going to book. There's also the fact that many shows that have been running for a very long time and have changed their audiences to maybe say New York theater goers to very international theater goers are going to have a harder time coming back until more countries have people that are vaccinated and that international travel opens up more, like it had in 2019, like it was in 2019. I subbed at a show, a really long running show a few years ago, and I spoke to people in Mandarin, I spoke to people in Japanese, spoke to people in Italian, because the theater goers that came to that show were from all over the world, because that show had been running so long. So that's also going to have a huge impact on if those long running shows that maybe sold more tickets on TKTS or appealed more to an international audience, if they're going to come back or when they're going to come back. The flip side of that, and the good thing, is that shows that have been in development and meaning to come to Broadway might take up space in those theaters. I mean, it's not a guarantee, but shows that haven't selected their theater and paid any rent to their theater, or have teched their show for weeks, those shows might have enough capital where they can move into the theaters and take that place. Because, I mean, what's important to note is Broadway was doing pretty well before it shut down. In the 2018-2019 season, Broadway did almost $2 billion of ticket sales and had almost 15 million people attend, which is more than all 10 sports teams, all 10 big sports teams in New York combined. So Broadway's not some small little thing. Broadway was doing really well. There were tons of shows waiting for theaters, and if more shows end up closing, I hope they don't, but if they do, there might be shows willing to jump in those theaters because they've been meaning to come to Broadway for a while, and now they finally have the space to do it. And I mean, another good thing is that we are in this position now. I mean, this is March of 2021. We in the US have approved 3 vaccines. People are getting vaccinated. My mom, my brother, and my brother's girlfriend were all vaccinated last week. All got their first shots of Moderna, which is amazing. I'm hopefully getting vaccinated next month. But there's light at the end of the tunnel. You know, things will come back. They might not look the same, but Broadway will come back. And I do know that whatever form it comes back, I will be there. Even if my show closes, even if I move to another theater, that I will be there in some respect, because I mean, Broadway's my home. So here's the theory on when I think Broadway will come back. Based on how the vaccines are going now, how they're ramping up, how there are so many 24-hour vaccine places opening up in New York, which is amazing, I think that Broadway will be cleared to go back in the next couple of months. But what's important to remember, right now the issue from the Broadway League is that Broadway is closed through May 31st. And what that only means is that people are able to exchange their tickets through May 31st in case they decided to, you know, buy tickets to Hamilton, if Hamilton tickets are even on sale for June 1st and past. 99%, I hope I'm wrong about this, I would love to be, but Broadway is 99% not going to open up on June 1st, because right now everybody would have to be vaccinated, and we will be planning when to go back to our theaters, people would be called back to rehearsal. I don't think any of that has happened yet. So what I think is that Broadway theaters are going to get the clear, that they can open up, things are ramping up, more people are vaccinated, lockdowns start easing, and then shows will announce when they're going to come back and open up sales for that so that they can build in advance, which will help them to finance the return, the retraining, the recasting, the marketing, things like that. You know, I'm really praying, fingers crossed, that Broadway opens up in some capacity in fall 2021 with some shows that will have a healthy advance by announcing that they're coming back sometime this summer. They'll announce and then they'll start in fall. That is my hope. That is my prayer. Hopefully these vaccines go well, the variants stay away, things like that. I'm really hoping so, because thousands of people depend on this. We can't just snap our fingers and automatically you can have thousands of people in our theaters again. It has to be a ramp up. It is a business, it is an industry, and it needs to make money to survive. So hopefully that will be sooner rather than later, but the important thing is there is a light at the end of the tunnel. So I think that is it. I also, the last thing I would like to do is make a plea for, if you have the means, to please donate to the Actors Fund or Broadway Cares Equity Fights AIDS, which are two organizations that help people that work on Broadway, that help people that work in entertainment in all facets. I haven't received any benefits from the Actors Fund, but I know it's an amazing organization, as is Broadway Cares. These organizations are giving out so much money, and if you have anything to donate, it would be so appreciated. I will leave the links below if you can. So I think that's it. I hope to see Broadway come back very soon. We will see, but thank you for watching this very roller coaster like video. And I will see you next time. Bye.